That's really weird, though. Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday. It is September 10th, and we are here, thankfully, and got our coffee. So grab your cup, and we're ready to go. So this morning marks our very first Java with Jay with a guest, and I'm pleased to welcome Heather Smith, who is. It's now what time, Heather, for you?
8:30 p.m.
She is in Australia. What city are you in?
I live in Brisbane.
Okay.
Which is,
So, speaking of Brisbane, that is where Xerocon was last week. So, didn't have to travel too far, did you?
No, it was 10 minutes down the road from me, so I was very lucky.
That is so awesome. So,
yeah, very awesome.
I was watching from afar, and as I've been to all 6 Xerocons here in the U.S., I really want to get to one of them across the seas. And I'm just sitting here with so much FOMO, and started tweeting about it and talking about it. It's like, yeah, I'm really missing out here. And I just want to. I was thinking, you'd be a great person to talk to about it because you've been to all of them.
I got my 10 plus badge. So I've not been to all ones in Australia, but I've been to overseas ones as well. So I think that contributed.
That's awesome. So I want you to tell us a little bit about what happened there and how the atmosphere was. Just your initial thoughts on it, and then I'd love to get takeaways from it afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would encourage anyone who's listening in, especially you, Jay, to go to an overseas Xerocon or conference. I know I have been to one myself, and it does change your perspective. And I think the way that you're spoken to is slightly different, nuanced to the actual country. So I do highly encourage that. Look, this Xerocon was unlike any conference that I've been to, and if you look closely, I've got false eyelashes in, and my false eyelashes barely survived. It was a tissue fest. It was such an emotional Xerocon for us, and it's very bizarre for us to say this is an accounting conference, and there was so much talk and conversation about well-being, about taking care of yourself, and about mental health. And it resonated through the whole conference. We started off with Steve Vamos, the CEO, talking, and then the managing director, Trent, talking. But then Craig Hudson came on stage. Craig Hudson is the managing director of New Zealand, and he is a very athletic-looking but extremely large gentleman. And he came on stage, and before he arrived, the Maoris did their tribal dance, and it's always very moving when that happens. I don't know whether that happens in the US conferences, the Xerocons, but as an Australian, the New Zealanders are the enemy as an Australian. But the tribal dances are always extremely moving and passionate, and so we're all very heightened and aware. And then Craig came on as this big, strong man, and he sat on a stool and he shared a very vulnerable story of a dark time in his life. And it just raised our emotional levels to just a really high level. And then more and more talkers came on sharing things such as they came on and talked about the importance of just being kind to people, and the importance of looking out for one another, the importance of community, and just being a good character. You don't need to be the star. You don't need to be the rock star. Be someone who's good. And they very much talked about that. And so we were having these long talks that sort of all summed up with be kind. And make people's lives better. And I think as small business accountants and bookkeepers, we do aim to make people's lives better. But it was very strong, this theme through the whole conference, and they have released they've done a partnership with an organisation that supports mental health and wellbeing, and they have put resources together to support that. Plus, they have put funding together out into the community. And I think, like what happens in America, you have natural disasters there. They had. There've been a number of earthquakes in Christchurch, and they've put a lot of resources into that community just to support and the people. So it's really bizarre that I'm coming away from an accounting conference feeling that and saying that, but it was a really strong, important message. And I kind of think it didn't hit the dizzying highs of sometimes a conference does hit. And I'm going to say this word, which might be a bit controversial, but I think it kind of plateaued as a conference, but I think we all came together. So that I say plateau in a good way. I think we all just sort of came together and said, this is okay, we're in a good position, we're doing good things. We're here with learning about the technology, but look after ourselves because of all of this, the robots and the automation. We should be working less hours, and I'm always advocating that. But I think we're almost running and working more hours because it's fun, it's exciting, it's interesting, and we know that some of us in this area are pioneers pushing it forward, and so we're actually working longer hours than the shorter hours which we should be working. So that was really the theme that resonated through it.
One thing that I think about when I'm talking to my clients and advising them is sometimes we're doing that for them. We're giving them some of that relief to release, some of those worries and those thoughts that bring them down. And so we need that help too. So it's so important. And my wife is she's a licensed mental health intern still. She doesn't have her license yet. So, I hear about it all the time, how important it is. And, and it was great to see Zero delivering on that at XeroCon.
Yeah, no, absolutely was. And I do think exactly what you said is correct in that sometimes the small business owner, the only person they have that intimate conversation with is either their doctor or their accountant bookkeeper.
Yep.
And you don't need, as the accountant bookkeeper, to be a counsellor to solve all of their problems. But if you can listen and you can provide them some resources to help them, you may significantly help them through a dark time, because not being able to manage your money can cause a lot of darkness in people's lives. And there's a lot of things that you don't need to save them, but there's a lot of things you can do to help them, give them some oxygen, take them to that next step.
Oh, for sure. And we see it come tax time when they have this large tax due that they weren't expecting, and it's like, oh, okay, let's break this down, put it into step by step, say, we're going to work through this, build a plan, and there you go. So it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
very proud of them. I don't know whether they'll run that same theme to other countries. But it will be interesting to see, and whether other countries are prepared for it.
True. Well, the London XeroCon is coming up here shortly, I guess.
It is. It's only about 6 to 7 or 8 weeks away. It's not very long away.
So we'll see if that theme recurs there, and we'll have an idea. Considering here in the U.S., we just came off ours a few months ago. We don't even know where or when it's going to be at this point going forward next year. Yeah. But I did see your post that 2020 Sydney. So and I did see somebody said, Jay, you need to be here. And before I even saw that post, I said to my wife, we're going to Sydney next year.
Absolutely.
And we're put it in writing right now that's going to happen. So looking forward to that. Yeah, I mean, I've never been to Australia, and she's like, "Well, that's a long trip for a couple of days." I said, "We're not going for a couple of days." So we'll see how that goes when that time comes. But our daughter's going to start high school. She's going to be on her own a little bit more, so it's a good time to do that.
Absolutely. I think even for the people who are just flying up from Sydney to Brisbane, I tell them they should come here for
Yeah.
a whole week and they should immerse themselves, because the whole thing is we're telling people you can work from anywhere and we should be doing that ourselves. So come out for a month, Jay.
Yeah.
But definitely come out for a couple of weeks and you just have a fantastic time. And I've been to America to conferences. It just changed everything for me. And I hope that the same thing happens for you and other people who
Sure.
are listening in. They come out and really
Yeah.
enjoy it.
So now that that's out, what were the takeaways other than we all need to go to Sydney next year? What were the takeaways that you got from XeroCon last week?
Well, there were a few technical releases, so I'm not sure whether you were across those, but I'll just quickly mention those. One of them, the MailChimp integration with contacts has improved. They're going to be releasing an integration between contacts and Google Contacts, which I thought sounds very interesting. They're introducing a short-term cash flow tool. And they've got this new tool called Feedback Say What, which is kind of like a customer survey tool. That'll be interesting to see whether that works or not. And this is kind of the thing that is, I think, the biggest, but I don't know. I'm not hearing much about it, and not many informed people are talking to me about it. But they've got a partnership with GreatSoft, which is a practice management solution for the larger firms. So the big four or the bigger companies can actually go on it, which in the past they haven't had a practice management solution the bigger companies could go to. So that I'm really interested to. Some of the people from the big four have told, I don't know if it's the big four in America as well, but here they've told me they're already investigating, they're having meetings and they're exploring that. So that should be
yeah, I
interesting.
saw that. And the interesting thing there is, like with XPM, it's one company, one XPM, because it's tied to the text ID of the firm.
Yes.
Well, it's GreatSoft, right? Is that what it is?
Yes.
GreatSoft will
yes.
allow you to have multiple firms in the one software, and you just connect them all in the back end. So that truly is phenomenal. So we'll see if that comes this way to the US.
Well, that will be a game changer for people, definitely. So another big takeaway was one of my favourite Xero staff members, Kevin Fitzgerald. He is is managing director over in Asia, and he gave this amazing, it was only 17 minutes long, talk on Asia and what they're doing in the Asia region. I'm very much focused on Xero as a global solution. We can work globally. I never do compliance for people listening in, so Xero is global. We can work globally, and he very much talked about what's happening in Asia. They have Xero in 46 of 48 countries in Asia region, which is amazing. They have 100 million small businesses in Asia, which they predict will double within the next 5 years. And just the statistics of the use of the internet, 2.2 billion people using the internet. What is the sheer possibility of what we can do in Asia? But all of those countries have their own nuances, and it will be interesting to see how they take up the adoption of software and hardware. And I can just talk to Singapore very briefly, which is a very small but large population, a small place. It's a tiny geographically place, but 2+ million people. All businesses are required to have a point of sale system, but not necessarily required to have an accounting solution. So that's
very
interesting, isn't it? You've got must have your FPOS machine, so we can know how much money you're collecting, but you don't need an accounting solution. But it's just begging for an accounting solution if you can explain it to them. So I think his talk really opened up people's minds to potentially doing work in Asia. Because if you had capacity, why wouldn't you be training Asian
Right.
businesses if you could, or setting them up, or doing setting up their management
Yeah, so
reports?
that was
Yeah, so that was
very
very
interesting.
very interesting.
Sue Pack,
Um,
who
Sue
is
Pack, who
head
is
of accounting
head of
out of
accounting
New
out of
Zealand,
New
she
Zealand,
gave
she gave
a talk.
a
She did a
talk.
survey.
She did a
Did one of
survey.
those live
Did one of
survey
those
things
live
of what
survey
people
things of
wanted,
what people
and
wanted, and
growth
interestingly,
was the
growth
number one
was
thing.
the
Like
number one thing. Like
massively, that's what they were
massively,
looking
that's what
for,
they were
Yeah.
looking for,
growth,
was
which
growth,
was very
which
interesting.
is very
And
interesting.
they
And
did a survey
they did a
outside of that
survey
scope, and
outside
the
of that
top
scope,
three
and the
things
top
for
three things
growth
for
were
growth were
budgeting, cash flow
budgeting,
forecasting,
cash flow
business planning.
forecasting, business
The
planning.
second one,
The second
startup,
one,
mentoring and
startup,
business development.
mentoring and business
And the
development.
third one,
And the third one,
app setup and
app
software
setup and
support.
software
So I
support.
thought that was
So I
really
thought that
interesting.
was really
So
interesting.
it was very
So
much a
it was very
conference
much
that
a
the
conference
apps
that the
were
apps
completely
were
part of it,
completely part of
very,
it,
very
were
much
very,
present
very
in it,
much present in
very
it,
much
very
recognised as
much
being
recognized as
important,
being important,
which they are, but
which they
sometimes
are,
they're
but
to the
sometimes
side,
they're
but they
to
were
the
very much
side, but they were
involved
very much
with that
involved
conference.
with that
Yeah.
conference. Yeah.
And
And
so the other
so the
unusual
other
thing, which it
unusual
might be
thing, which
different
it
in the
might be
US, but
different in
for
the
us in
US,
the
but
past,
for
they've
us
always
in
had
the
a
past, they've
big
always had a big outside
media
media
team
team
there.
there.
But
But
this
this
year,
year,
for
for
the
the
first
first
time,
time,
they
they
had
had lots
lots
of
of
micro
micro media
media
Right.
people
people
there
there
who
who
were
were recording
recording
their
their
own
own videos,
videos, recording
recording
their
their
own
own
podcasts,
podcasts,
taking
taking
their
their
own
own photos.
photos.
So
So
that
that
was
was
the
the
very
very
first
first
time.
time. So that
Interesting
was
to see. So I know in the
interesting to see,
past
because I
I've
know
gone
in
to
the
them and
past
been
I've
told
gone
off
to
for
them and been
taking
told off
videos
for
and stuff
taking
like that.
videos and stuff like that.
In the early days,
In
not
the early
recently,
days,
but in
not
the early
recently,
days.
but in
So
the early days.
yeah, so
So
that was very
yeah, so that
interesting.
was very
Oh,
interesting.
wow. Now, as far as Kevin Fitzgerald's talk, I did see you did record that and post that on YouTube. So I will
Yes, I
post
did
that link
Yes, I
out
did
here as
actually.
well so everybody can see
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's sounds like a full week wrapped up in 2 days.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah,
because
absolutely. And because here in Brisbane we have fringe events, so we had multiple events you happen all through the week, all over
Right.
the place,
which
um,
adds to
which
the
adds to the
excitement of
excitement
the whole week, I
of the
guess.
whole week, I guess.
Wow. Yeah. So looking forward to getting out there and doing that. So other than that, what else do you have going on? I know you did a pre-con event as well.
Yeah, so
Yeah, so during Xerocon, I organised on the Monday night with the main accounting association here, the Chartered Accountants. I organised a panel talk, and we had 120 people come to that, and that was about conversations and connectivity. And I grabbed all the international speakers in for that. I then on the Tuesday night, I organised this just on the smell of an oily rag. I send out emails. Who's going to, bring the cakes and cut them up, and who's going to cut this up, and da da da. So everyone brings a plate or does something. I had 200 people attend a 3 hour intro, kind of a let's talk about apps, let's give apps lots of love. But what was actually really interesting about that was I had a number of apps to give their own talk, but I asked a number of accountants and bookkeepers, would you be open to talking on some of these apps, and I'll partner you up with them, and you come and give me a 5 minute talk on them. And it was such a great idea. They did such a fantastic job, and it was actually far better than potentially the person who's giving, the
Right.
app partners giving their own talk, because it was so realistic that, they were a bit nervous, but it was exciting that they were actually had the opportunity to present in front of their peers, and actually go, this is really working well for my client, and this is why, and I'm just blown away. And they're excited and jumping, and it was lovely. So I think next year I will just get multiple people just to present on different apps, and they can come and choose that, because everyone it gives people, if they want it, an opportunity to
Yeah.
stretch themselves. And we had a lovely panel discussion, and I think I had 30 speakers, and I went 6 minutes over. 6 minutes over. So I run a very tight
Wow.
ship. But and then on the Thursday morning, Receipt Bank kindly invited me to talk with Tim Hoopman, and we raised, I think, $4,500 for Beyond Blue, which is our mental health association. So we were really happy about that. My false eyelashes barely survived again. It was a bad idea that week, but it was a
event.
wonderful event.
And
And lots of evening events, and it's not just all drinking. It's lots of interesting get together. And I do encourage other people, if they are doing a conference or running a conference or attending it, think about doing a fringe event to niche,
Sure.
to actually niche into sort of particular areas you want to niche into. And I run that community event the day before, so we can give the apps some love, so we can recognize that they're humans, and so we can actually hear from them, because sometimes it's just so busy you don't get to hear from them. So if you come along, you got 3 hours and you've got like 20 apps going ba 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 ba
Yeah.
ba, which is great. You can absorb it, and you know if you need to go and talk to them further
That's
or not.
awesome. I'm gonna make sure I put that on my schedule as well. So,
Oh, you're speaking
oh,
at it,
awesome.
Jay.
Even better. Even better. So,
You are on the panel, special guest
awesome.
panelist.
I will hold you to that. So,
Oh, I'm announcing it today.
there you go.
Officially
Awesome.
here right
That's
now.
great. So we are all in, and I appreciate you jumping on with us this morning, your evening, and hopefully everybody got a little bit of what Xerocon South was like. So thank you so much. We appreciate it. And for everybody else out there, it's been a great morning. Gonna grab another cup of coffee, and we will see you next time. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.